going to do a prediction of Kell Brook versus Amir Khan. Um, so we're going to talk about this a little bit, and we're going to see if we can go through this really quickly with you guys. All right. All right. So the fight's going to go off tomorrow. When you look at the weigh-in of both guys, they look pretty good for this fight. Amir Khan looks a little bit more. Um, but looks are deceiving. So Kell Brook looks in ridiculous shape as he almost always does, and Amir Khan, he looks all right. Yeah, he kind of put on some weight, I guess, because he's 149. We're talking about. Um, what can I say? First of all, the trainers are great trainers. Dominic Ingle and Bomac. They're both great trainers. So they're fantastic. So it's going to come down to the fighters. It's going to come down to how far they push themselves. I know Bomac pushed Amir Khan a lot. So Amir Khan has amazing speed. He fights in waves. Though Kell Brook has timing, Khan's speed, if you don't know how to handle his speed, Khan could take over this fight and drop, Kell Brook a number of times, maybe even hurt him. All right. And Terrence Crawford knows what to do to hurt Kell Brook. And could Amir Khan do something like that? Possibly. Catch him, check hook him, as he's coming in. But then again, Kell Brook is very good at fighting orthodox fighters. So that's a very interesting fight. And then Kell Brook is very motivated for this fight. And then the other thing with Kell Brook is, he has that knockout power. He's got a good pop. Now, having said all of that, um, I'm going to pick Kell Brook to win this fight by stoppage. Um, I may be wrong in this one because there's a number of factors that I haven't really gone through. One is the fighters, um, coming off of their knockout losses. The last fight that Kell Brook had, he was knocked out by Terrence Crawford, I believe. Similarly for Amir Khan. So I can't really say definitively what could happen. Kell Brook could get caught with a shot by Amir Khan, get hurt and put down. Kell Brook, though, looked pretty good uh, for the weigh-in. He made weight. Obviously, he was stripped right down. So what I mean by that is his body, he's a very big guy. He's not a welterweight at all. And so this is why the fighters had a catch weight of 149. Excuse me. And so, Kell Brook, you know, it's always going to be a weight issue that's going to be the problem with him. So if he's not dehydrated, if he's properly hydrated, if he's in good shape, then I expect Kell Brook to do very well in this fight with Amir Khan. But he's going to have some difficulty early on just dealing with Amir Khan's speed. The extent to which Dominic Ingle actually went with Kell Brook tells us just how far drinking Kell Brook's sweat and stuff like that that's just very extreme. So the on both camps, the level to which these both camps went with their fighters um, is very very far. Now, having Terrence Crawford in your corner any day, any time is a great advantage for Amir Khan. So this is what makes this fight very compelling, because you have Amir Khan on one side, Bomax's trainer pushed him to the limit, and then on top of that, Terrence Crawford was there assisting him. That's great. Okay. Whereas on the other side, you have Dominic Ingle, just a very esteemed trainer. Gets the results that it needs to be gotten. And you had I'm very motivated. Kell Brook went above and beyond, even made weight. And a trainer that's drinking his sweat and all kinds of crazy things. It's just crazy. So that's the level to which they went. So this is a very compelling fight. I can't really say definitively who's going to win this fight, but I will favor Kell Brook. Now, the reason I favor Kell Brook over Amir Khan is because I never thought of Kell Brook as chinny, first of all, even though Terrence Crawford caught him with a really good shot and stunned him. I've never really seen Kell Brook chinny. Amir Khan is a chinny fighter. I can tell you that right now. And Amir Khan can fight a really, really good fight and still get dropped in the fight. Yeah, it doesn't matter. He gets dropped. So I do feel if he does not overwhelm Kell Brook, um, and if he makes any kinds of mistakes, Kell Brook will chin him. And the thing about Kell Brook is Kell Brook always lands his money shots. In every single fight, he's always landed a money shot. Now, could Amir Khan obliterate Kell Brook? It's very possible. Kell Brook's not the fastest guy in the world. You know, his thing is timing, and Amir Khan is very fast. So this fight is like that because of that. But I'm picking one. I'm picking Kell Brook to win by knockout. I think Kell wanted to knock out Amir Khan for the longest while. I have not thought of any fight that Amir Khan has had of recent times where he has not been dropped or he hasn't been stopped. So I pick Amir Khan to get knocked out. Kell Brook has won fights, you know, against bigger fighters, against harder punchers. Yeah, he got stopped by Terrence Crawford, but he was beating Terrence Crawford at the time too. Um, but I do believe that Kell Brook. Now Amir Khan has Bomac in his corner, but Bomac has lost fights with other fighters. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what kind of Amir Khan comes out tomorrow. He's going to be very motivated. I can tell Amir Khan, you know, he's got a certain degree of edginess and fear to him. And that's when he performs his best. And he says he must win this fight. So he's really determined to get the win for this fight. So I really think that this is a 50-50 fight going in. But I favor Kell Brook by stoppage. If he doesn't stop Amir Khan's going to win this fight. Period. Um, then I wanted to say that I saw something where Mayweather was actually assisting Anthony Joshua in training. I think when he came and he was going through all the different camps, I think he passed by Mayweather as well in Las Vegas. Now, quite frankly, I know Anthony Joshua was trying to find the answers to beat and crack the code of Alexander Usyk. I truly hope he gets through and he succeeds with that. Or he even does better than he did the first fight. Just kind of like Deontay Wilder did a little bit better against Tyson Fury. It's a very high uphill climb, if we're going to be realistic, to beat Alexander Usyk. It's not that easy to beat him. He's a tricky fighter like Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter's another difficult one. Just that I find that Alexander Usyk, he has better conditioning than Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter fades as the fight goes along. So, I mean, Alexander Usyk is always going to be a problem. Okay, but can Anthony Joshua pull off a win within the space of time? He's done it against Andy Ruiz. Now, Andy Ruiz had some certain deficiencies. Can he find and exploit certain things that Alexander Usyk does to get that win? Well, we'll see. But I'm telling you right now, Alexander Usyk is no joke. And he could be champion for a very, very long time. Tyson Fury is going to be a problem for him. And Tyson Fury will have to figure out Alexander Usyk, though. But, and Alexander Usyk acknowledged Tyson Fury would be the biggest challenge for him. But still, at the end of the day, he is a problem in the division. Alexander Usyk is a problem, period. I mean, I don't know how else to say this, except if you're talking about pound for pound, one of the greatest fighters in the world right now, you're talking about Alexander Usyk, okay? The man, his movement, his timing, his precision, the fact that he's southpaw and he utilizes his advantages as a southpaw, having seen so much orthodox fighters. I myself, being a southpaw, really appreciate what he does, how he varies his range, how he varies his distance, not just lateral movement, but also how he goes in and out, how he probes and so on. So Alexander Usyk is a very tricky customer, and he's only going to get better as he acclimatizes to heavyweight. So we'll see what Anthony Joshua can do against him. And if Anthony Joshua pulls off that win, that will be a tremendous win for Anthony Joshua's career. That's a tremendous learning curve he had between his last fight with Usyk and now. So there's a lot of work Anthony Joshua has to do to be able to beat Alexander Usyk, and he's doing his homework and due diligence. We'll see what happens. I was in some. I'm in some boxing groups, and I've been doing my contributions to the groups. As usual, certain fight fans or a lot of fight fans do not understand the sport of boxing, and it is what it is. And there's a lot of them. They again, so many fight fans have so much ego. So I've ended up dealing with some fight fans who their egos just get in the way of everything, and so they can't learn nothing. Um, but in the sport of boxing, you gotta be humble. You know, a lot of people think that certain fighters who they see on TV, they're not humble people. But you don't get success if you're not humble. You have to be humble to learn. You have to be eager to be teachable. You have to be eager to learn. And you're always listening to information and you're trying to learn from it. But you have to sift through and filter what is makes sense and what doesn't make sense. That's all. But you have to be receptive to learning. In boxing, you have to be all the time receptive to learning. And learning not just boxing, but the business of boxing, so many other things. A lot of people as well, and I noticed this with a lot of fight fans, they not only don't want to familiarize themselves with the science of boxing, but they also have these generic opinions. They're more popularists than they are people who truly want to understand a sport, which is sad. Um, I've been looking at, I've been doing what ifs on certain YouTube groups, um, particularly what if this fighter faced this fighter. And since it's, one of the boxing groups has to do with the history of boxing and pugilism and so on. And so I sometimes match a former fighter from a bygone era with a modern fighter. Now, to be honest with you, that's an unrealistic thing to do to start with. You can't, it's just not possible. But if you could, say it was an upcoming fight, right? Just like how we are doing predictions on Amir Khan versus Cal Brook, for example. Um, you want to you want to treat it like that. Now, of course, you have to ask yourself so many different questions, and every one of these questions sort of changes the boxer that you're actually dealing with. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean. So let's say we're talking about Jerome Ennis versus Sugar Ray Leonard. Okay, Jerome Ennis right now is probably going to be the next big star in boxing. Okay, now he's next. Sugar Ray Leonard was a great star in boxing. Now, if for example, the only way I can match these two fighters up is to go back in time travel back in time, and take Sugar Ray Leonard and physically bring him into Jerome Ennis's time, give him maybe a year to 6 months to prep, and then I take Jerome Ennis and I time travel him back into Sugar Ray Leonard's time. Now, the problem with that is that it's kind of unfair to time travel Jerome Ennis into Sugar Ray Leonard's time because he already knows how Sugar Ray Leonard performed. He saw all of Sugar Ray Leonard's fights. He knew how the outcome of the fights were. So it's kind of unfair because you can't take away his knowledge of the sport. So he has an unfair advantage in that he knows what's going to happen in every single Sugar Ray Leonard fight. Whereas if Sugar Ray Leonard goes from the past into the present with Jerome Ennis will know who Sugar Ray Leonard is. Sugar Ray Leonard will not know who Jerome Ennis is. So it's not fair. And this is why I said when we match old school fighters with new school fighters, you have to understand new school fighters can only be new school fighters because they build off of old school fighters. Right? So they have the whole history and the blueprint set in front of them. So that's why it's somewhat unfair to have matchups between old school fighters and new school fighters. It's just that it make no sense. Or modern fighters with past greats because it don't make no sense. All the knowledge that the fighters after another generation have, it's because they built off of that generation that was there. They were watching that generation is there. So it's always an unfair thing. But let's just go hypothetical. For some reason, we're going to do this. So if you go hypothetical with a modern fighter versus a past fighter, all right, which I've done many times, I've noticed, especially if it's a past great, people just, without thinking, they pick the past fighter. And sometimes it's because it's a fighter they like or whatever. But if you were to be doing it for money, let's say it was a real fight and you were betting on it, you had to bet your money on it, would you just bet on the guy you like or would you bet on the guy you think will win? And these are the different things. People don't actually, a lot of people don't bet anyway. So you see people talking about the fighter they like and they vote for the fighter. There's no reasoning behind it. So when I do hypothetical stuff and I start going in some detail, they're like, oh, it's a fantasy fight, so it's really my fantasy. And every answer is correct. And people, so there's no deductive reasoning, there's no analytics, there's no analytism. And I realized that fans like it that way. They don't really want to go too deep into boxing sometimes. And it's tragic because I love dissecting things because I love dissecting fighters. Like people ask me, "Well, your favorite fighter is Floyd," and I'm like, "No, my favorite fighter is not Floyd. Right now, currently, my favorite fighter is not even Floyd Mayweather. Not. My favorite fighter is actually a super bantamweight fighter from Philadelphia. They call him Scooter, aka they call him Cool Boy Steph. That is Stephen Fulton. Like him. I like him a lot. That is my favorite fighter right now. So it is what it is. It's just that for me, as a student of the sport of boxing, you wanna. I don't want to get all my information correct, but I try my best to say as correctly as possible what I can say about boxing, and I try to rely on factual information when I speak about boxing because that's the only way you can actually have some level of impartiality about what you say. And a lot of people, they go on emotion, they go on who they like, and that's all well and good as a fan. But as a fan of boxing, for me, of boxing, not of some fighter, but of boxing, um, and somebody who boxes himself and somebody who tries to pick up information from wherever he can on different boxers and just learn and use and try things that they do. I tend to have that understanding that I want to be as true to the sport as I can because if I have to go into the ring, if I have to actually fight, right, and this is where the rubber really meets the road, and this is where you see the difference between a fan who's just a fan, a couch potato, probably don't do no boxing, don't care about it like that, and probably just a fan of a boxer to start with, and someone who is not just interested in the knowledge of the sport, but actually wants to do the sport, finds themselves realizing that the sport itself, actually doing boxing, actually being in the gym, actually boxing with a purpose of getting into competition, where it gets different. And you have to it's not about ego. Like a lot of people out here just got inflated egos, man. They have done nothing. They've done nothing in the sport. They've tried to do nothing. They don't get off the couch. They don't do nothing. Right? And they got this inflated ego. And it's really, really sometimes very disappointing. It's very discouraging when you have a conversation with people like that because those people they don't relate to nothing. They're so pessimistic and they bash tremendous fighters, and I don't do that. If anybody who watches me, I have criticisms of fighters. I may even go and be somewhat salacious about the fighters and emphasize on certain things because of the fans and how they're emphasizing things. I push back, but to say that I have disrespect for fighters, I will never have disrespect for fighters. I will never have disrespect for somebody who's putting their life on the line and stepping into that square. And believe you me, you're putting your life on the line when you do that. You get hit right or you get hit wrong, shall I say, it can be the end of your life, okay? And it doesn't have to be in the head. You can have internal injuries in your liver or spleen. You don't have perfect health, or you're dehydrated, and that can disrupt an organ, and you could die. Maybe you don't die immediately, but down the road, that eventually ends up being an injury that takes your life. So all I'm saying is that boxing is a very, very dangerous sport. Very dangerous sport. Okay, and it's not something you should take lightly at all. And if you ever find yourself in a position where you want to box or you want to get into that square circle, I highly recommend it for the respect of the sport that you step into that square circle. I don't care if you're a couch potato. I give you 100% thumbs up if you can get off the damn couch, okay, and step into the ring and just go one round with somebody. An amateur or a pro fighter, go one round. Some of y'all gonna collapse. The guy even throw a punch at you, you're gonna collapse in that ring because you're just not in the condition. Boxing takes a lot of conditioning, people. It's not just running. It's a whole tremendous amount of workout because you have to be able to do squats, you have to be able to dip, you have to be able to slip things, you have to be able to get super duper duper low. Let me explain what I mean. So if I'm in a boxing stance here, I have to get under a shot. I have to dip under that shot like this. I have to dip under that shot. Sometimes I have to dip and swivel out the way out that shot. That's a lot of movement, a lot of core body movement. Okay? You're talking to a 47-year-old man. A 47-year-old man moving like that. Think about that. I think about it all the time. My health has improved so much. 47 years old. And I just did that. I know a lot of people who can't do what I just did. Okay? And I'm telling you this not to boast about myself, but to show you how much boxing can change. Literally change not just your physical, but it can change also your mental and just your body and how it moves and everything. And I want people to experience that. The endorphins that come off it, the energy, the high that you get off of just doing that. And yes, taking punishment can break down the body, but it can also strengthen it. I'm not telling you to take flush shots, but when you block the punches, you still get the shock of the punch on your arms and your elbows and your body. Okay? But it makes you stronger. It makes you tougher. And so all of these things are very important for you guys to understand. It's a beautiful sport for that because it gets you more disciplined. You're going to have to wake up 3 o'clock in the morning and exercise. You're going to have to wake up 4 o'clock in the morning and exercise. You read your Bible. If you're a Christian, you study early in the morning and you go out and you do your thing. Maybe some people are evening people, so they sleep all through the afternoon, until afternoon, and then you go and you do your thing. Whatever it is for you. Just imagine these athletes, though. They do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day. They're training. And look at them. They're in impeccable shape. Look at them. They're healthy, most of them. And because they don't, now boxers today, particularly today, they don't drink and smoke and all those kinds of things and womanize too much. Some of them do. They're healthy. They're strong. They're healthy. Okay? So I really advocate for people to really get into sport. Really, I want you to really immerse yourself in the sport. And you're going to find yourself wanting, when you immerse yourself in the sport, you want to know the history of the sport. You want to know, the great fighters today and what you can take from them. You want to know, you'll want to know about not just the great fighters or the people, the known fighters of the past. You want to know the unknown fighters of the past. You will want to know the business of the sport, to maneuver your way through the sport. You'll want to know all of these things. And trust me, you will find out so much more if you immerse yourself in the sport. A lot of people are too egotistical out here. Too egotistical for their own good. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about what I find very wonderful about boxing. Boxing is a sport. It's kind of like I do gardening and stuff, and I love gardening as well. I also love selling simple things like water on the side of the road. I like simple stuff sometimes. I'm intellectual sort of, and I also like studying. I love learning. I love understanding things. I like growing as a person. And anyways, the point is with boxing, and again, just a beautiful sport. It's a fantastic sport. With boxing, it opens up your mind, not only to spatial arrangements, but it opens up your mind to visualization of things. To be able to visualize something, to be able to see something without doing it. And I know in my martial arts background that I used to have, we had to do katas, and I used to visualize the kata in my head. So I'm not necessarily doing the kata at this point in time, but I'm visualizing it. And similarly, when you visualize things in your mind, in your brain, you do them perfectly. You see, you do them perfectly. You don't make mistakes when you do them. So the more you go do something over and over in your head, the right way is the more you execute it the right way. You see, and this is a discipline. It disciplines your mind, your body. Boxing is beautiful. I understand why once upon a time law enforcement used to take kids who you know were they call them delinquent kids, but nowadays they call them at-risk youth, and get them involved in these programs because boxing not only is self-defense, ladies and gentlemen, but boxing can teach you discipline. A lot of these kids, they end up in the military or they end up in the police force because the boxing gave them that discipline, that mindset. And not just a discipline in terms of being able to do the right thing all the time. That's cool too, but also a discipline, a strength within themselves to be able to deal with any challenge and obstacle in a disciplined manner, in an approach where in a repetitious approach to be able to deal with those situations. My neighbor's already going out. He's going to the market early this morning. The time's almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's already gone. That's the kind of discipline I'm talking about. So I just try to share these little things with you guys about boxing. I don't get to spend a lot of time with you guys, but that's all right. Hopefully, we can entertain some questions. Smash the like button if you like what you're seeing. Share the video if you want to share with other people. It is quite voluminous. As always, my videos are somewhat long, and I don't mind having them long. I have short ones too, but I want to do some long ones. Spend some quality time with you guys. Two of my friends, one who was in his 70s and one who was in his 40s, they died within the space of days from today. So both of them had the COVID. One of them had pre-existing conditions, and he died of a heart attack. The other guy, I guess COVID took him. Both wonderful brothers, and I just want to tell you guys this. Life is something where you're here today and you're gone tomorrow. Okay? You're here today and you're gone tomorrow. My mother was alive and kicking at the beginning of 2018, and by the beginning of 2019, she was gone. Um, I could give you so many situations. My cousin um, was up and moving and popping, went for vacation, came back, and within weeks, he was dead. Okay? He had asked me the day that he died for something to eat, but I couldn't go down to the hospital because I was taking care of my mom. Guys, don't take this life for granted. Don't take any day for granted, and don't take people for granted. I say it over and over again, so that a dose of reality would hit some of you guys. Don't take anyone for granted. Love people. When you're gone, let them miss you. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been going to too many funerals. I've been hearing of too many people dying these days. It's a precious thing to have life, and it's a precious thing to use it to benefit other people. So just remember that. I'm going to catch you guys later. I'm what you need. Peace.